Hi, Beverly Copeland. Today, in my apartment in Panama Casa. Apartment in Panama. Okay, so this is like the dining room. There's the laundry room behind the refrigerator. This is obviously not my artwork. This is a furnished apartment, right? Came furnished. That's not my. Anyone knows my taste? This art was here when I came here. The furniture too. So I wanted to show you what I see every day out of my, panoramic windows. I see ships going to and from, I don't know if you can, the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal. So every day I'm reminded of the geostrategic value of the Republic of Panama, right? So, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I'm reminded of that every day. Again, this is Beverly Copeland. Today is June the 20th, Saturday, 20. I'm reminded of that every day because this is what I see when I come out of my bedroom. I enter this area to have my breakfast or do my laundry or whatever. That is the first thing I see. The Panama Canal, when I look out my living room window, the Panama Canal, and I'm reminded of the geostrategic value of the Republic of Panama. So, before I begin with a discussion of this is just my apartment, so just take you around this area. You see the bedroom, master bathroom. You've seen this part too. You get the remote for the AC. You see the maid's quarters, everything like that. I don't have a maid of my own maid. It's a furnished apartment. That's not my taste in art. That's not my taste in art. And that's not my taste in art either. So, this is basically the chair that I sit on because these chairs are not ergonomic. I broke my back in two places, and when I sit on them, my back hurts when I get up. These chairs are not sturdy. So I don't sit on them because I'm afraid of breaking my back, etc. And they're not ergonomic. So this is the desk chair for the desk in the apartment. This is basically the chair that I sit on. So I'm mentioning all of that, right? And so these chairs, these sofas and chairs, I don't sit on, or the chairs that came with the kitchen dining room table and the chairs for the counter. I don't sit on them. I don't. If I do, I put something over them. It's rare. But I don't because my back was terrible. I broke my back in two places. Subsequent to that, I had to have surgery on my knee, an automobile accident. Now, I have a lot to talk about today. But before I do, I want to bring in a few things in the political, I don't know what I should do. I wanted to be able to get that shot of the Panama Canal, but I can't, so I guess I'll just turn this around. See? Well, anyway, it's Beverly, and I'm just gonna talk. Just have this shot of my apartment. So, yeah, I wanted to say that we are living through we are entering a very, very tragic, really, historic, tragic era in human history. Not because of the looming inevitable economic collapse, which, because of the interconnection of the global economy, means that it's going to be the worst depression in the annals of human history. Not only that, with all the negative scapegoating, etc., etc. And like the last time, as I have been saying for years, when I had a TV show years ago, I said it's analogous to what happened with the stock market crash and the Great Depression in 1929. In my view, as someone who dropped out of a PhD program in economics, that was orchestrated. There was a new burst of technologies, electronics, gadgets, gizmos, cars, radios, all kinds of stuff, refrigerators, stoves, light bulbs, so many. So what it appeared to be, as a student of economic history, there was a new burst of technologies, right? So in order to get seed money to finance these new technologies as they emerged, people were encouraged to participate in the stock market, in the equity markets, in the stock markets, in the financial markets, right? So that a pool of capital would be accessible for the research and development and marketing of these new products that were the result of these new innovation, this new burst of technology via electronics, primarily. Right? Automotives, things like that, and automotive stuff like that. So we had that, yes. And then as these new technologies, technologies have a product life cycle, like humans, right? We're born, we're infants, we reach maturity, and then we decline old age. Products, technologies, this is it's known in marketing as the product life cycle for products and technology. So when it was new, when these things were new, to encourage the research and development of the potential for these new technologies, if you will, little people were encouraged to participate in the stock market, and they flooded the stock market with money that provided the seed money for startups, etc., etc. So there were like so many, maybe 100 automobile companies in America at one time when these new technologies started. Then, as these technologies began to mature, there was a shakeout. Right? It's called a Great Depression stock market crash. And what happened was the powers that be were able to, how can I say, they were able to consolidate, I'll use that euphemism, consolidate their power and wealth. So it went from maybe 100 automobile companies to, after the Great Depression in America, maybe, maybe 5. Now are there 3 or are there 2? Depends. So we're the same thing now. This is analogous to the last part of the 20th century and our century now, the 21st, where it's not electronics and automotives. What the new technologies are related to computing, IT, information technologies, right? All this burst of IT technologies. Analogously, there were like, in order to get encouraged, people were encouraged to get involved, to speculate in the stock market, the equity markets, etc., to provide a pool of capital or money to finance the research and development of the potentially new innovations, IT innovations. So now, again, everything has products and technologies have a product life cycle. So that's when when they saw the burst of this new innovative engineering and science, they wanted to maximize the profit and the potential. Tons of money, people were encouraged to pour, like the last time, money into the market. And so we have all these hedge fund managers, startups, you name it. And it doesn't take, well, to be honest, And so now that these technologies are maturing, they're not really mature, but they're maturing, there's going to be another shakeout, and the powers that be are going to consolidate their wealth and power like they did the last time. And you know, who was it, Yogi Berra, who said deja vu all over again? Well, deja vu all over again because the same cast of characters. It's almost like a rerun of a horror movie. It really is a rerun of a horror movie. Again, the people who manage Wall Street, not by any stretch the people who own it, have hijacked the management from the good old boys and the good old, let me be honest, good old boys and good old girls in America. People like the John Reeds, the Walter Wristons, people, African Americans I know, like a professor, a business professor of mine named Nat Sutton, and like Gail Robinson, who's someone I went to Bronx High School of Science with, and then to Columbia University Barnard College. These people were the best and the brightest on Wall Street. Nat Sutton was one of the state of North Carolina's many, many gifts to the Harvard Business School, and Gail Robinson certainly was one of New York's many, many gifts to Columbia University's Business School. And John Reed and Walter Wriston at Citicorp, they were all Citigroupers. And they were considered, the Citigroupers were considered the best and the brightest on the street being Wall Street. So then, you know, the next thing we knew, it was like a Mission Impossible movie. These are the people who managed it. They were the senior managers. Gail Robinson was so damn good that it used to irritate people because everybody said she's better than the damn white boys who's been seeped in Wall Street for generations. They'd have meetings, they'd go on trips to do it. She'd come in the meeting already, they're tired from jet lag. She'd have her PowerPoint presentation, analyze everything. And so she was just so damn good. So Gail was a managing director in an investment banking group at Citicorp. She was not only a pioneering woman of color, a pioneering person of color, she was a pioneering woman on Wall Street. She was a managing director in corporate finance at that, on Wall Street at Citicorp, when she had to be the first. She had to be the first. Let me contextualize that. When I got out of graduate school, finished my MBA, in 1980, now that sounds like a long time ago to a lot of people, but actually it's not that long for someone like me. I'm 63 years old. So when I got out of graduate school in 1980, they had, guess what, to show you how extraordinary Gail Robinson is, there had never in the history of Wall Street been one woman, not even one blue-blooded Anglo-Saxon, WASP, patrician, family owns Wall Street woman, white woman, who had ever in the history of the world worked in corporate finance on Wall Street. You understand? It was unthinkable, unheard of. Again, I'm going to repeat that. In 1980, when I completed my MBA, in the history of the world, there had never been any woman, not even a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant blue-blooded WASP, whose family owned Wall Street, had an MBA with distinction from Harvard University. There had never been any woman in the history of the world who ever worked in corporate finance on Wall Street as late as 1980. Now, Gail Robinson, like me and Nat Sutton, is African American. Her roots are deep in the southern part of the United States of America, like mine and Nat Sutton, 100%. So I just wanted to say that to contextualize what an extraordinary genius, financial genius Gail Robinson is. She was a managing director in an investment banking corporate finance group at Citicorp. There was no affirmative action involved. Gail Robinson was just such an extraordinary genius. Nat Sutton was a genius too. So was John Reed. So was Walter Wriston. John Reed, who was Walter Wriston, obviously, and John Reed were white. But John Reed's first degree, one of his degrees is from MIT. I think he has engineering or something. He has a degree from MIT, and he was the head of Citigroup at the time. Now, there was a major coup at Citigroup. I'm just going to keep it real. Sandy Weil was head of Travelers, and they begged Citigroup to bail them out because they got in financial difficulty. John Reed, these were good old boys and good old girls. John Reed, Walter Wriston, Gail Robinson, Nat Sutton. These were people, ethical bankers, play by the rules. So then they felt sorry for Travelers. They brought Sandy Weil in. Now, Sandy Weil had everything he had done had been like a disaster of sorts. So they felt sorry for Sandy Weil. Now, Sandy Weil, I'm just going to keep it real, is Jewish, and his team was largely Jewish. So, they felt sorry for them, said they begged, we need help. They brought him in, right? And then what they did, to tutor them and help them because they needed help, essentially, it wasn't a merger, I believe it was an acquisition of Travelers by Citigroup. So they acquired Travelers, they bring them in, and then they feel they're begging, they need help, so they tutor them, right? So they had a co-this and a co-that for every important group at Citigroup. They had a Travelers person and a Citigrouper, right? The Citigroupers were, for the most part, Anglo-Saxons, with a few handful of exceptions, like my friends, Gail Robinson, and like my former professor, Nat Sutton, business professor. And the Wild team, let me be frank, were largely Jewish. Then it was like, I swear to God, it was like a Mission Impossible movie. Because the next thing you knew, all of the best and brightest, like the Nat Suttons, the Gail Robinsons, the John Reeds, were out. And the people that they had been tutoring as the co-managers were in running Citigroup, right? It was a strained old credulity. So I had to have lunch with my friends to find out how, because nobody understood. It was like, how did that happen? It was like a Mission Impossible movie. So I had lunch with Nat Sutton, I vividly recall, by the Citicorp building, right across the street, right by the Citicorp building. And I was like, it sounded like unbelievable, like a Mission Impossible movie. And I just packed that in the back of my head. I'm not saying anything now, but let me put it contextualize that at around the same time the Jews do not control, they do not own Wall Street. Please, let's get that straight. They don't own it. They just manage the Anglo-Saxons' money. They just manage their money, right? So there was a coup in terms of the management of the Anglo-Saxons' money. The good old boys, the people who were ethical, honest, the best of the brightest, the best geniuses in banking there were at the time. Now, they were ousted in a coup by the gang that can't shoot straight. Wild and his crew, I'm just being honest, they were out. No one could, I said, how could that? So I had to go and find out. So I was talking, and it sounded like a Mission Impossible movie, because it strained all credulity that the people they were tutoring, they felt sorry for and brought him in to help, and they were all saying John Reed was just too soft. They were sharks and shysters, and they just bamboozled him, and he was just a pushover. But John Reed was not so, you don't become head of a Citicorp if you were just a pushover. I'm not saying anything, but around that time, I'm just going to just say it. I'm not connecting any dots. I'm just putting it out there. For the first time in the history of the United States, we had a Jewish head of the United States intelligence. We had a Jewish head of the CIA, George Tenet, who says he's Greek, but actually, if you look at his genealogy, he's a French-Albanian Jewish extraction. So George Tenet was head of the CIA, an appointee by, you guessed it, Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton. Tenet comes in, Weil comes in, the good old boys and good old girls no longer manage Wall Street. It's essentially people like Weil, right? But I don't want to scapegoat, let me just say this. They don't own Wall Street. As a matter of fact, Weil became the king of the Wall Street managers, right? But let me say this. Weil was eventually forced out too. And I'm going to just give you the scuttlebutt on why Weil was, he was like the big baba, the head rabbi of Wall Street. He was forced out, and this is what, insiders know, and I know because So they told me because Sandy Weil started acting like he owned Wall Street, and the people who owned Wall Street, those white Anglo-Saxons, pushed and got rid of him, fired him, and he never got another job on Wall Street. From the head of Citicorp, but he had made so much money, And for example, the Weill Cornell, one of the top hospitals in Manhattan. That's Sandy Weil. But that's how certain people are. They're ostentatious. But the people who own Wall Street are, how Anglos are, quiet, understated, reserved. You could see that when you go to Ireland or the UK. The food, the architecture, those people are very, very, they're not flashy and showy. They're very, very understated and genteel. They're not pushy and flashy. So so the next thing he was out, and I just, all these things. But let me say this. I can honestly say I cannot conceive that the economy would have been pushed. The global economy would have been pushed to, and it's looming and inevitable, the greatest depression in the annals of human history if people like Gail Robinson, Nat Sutton, Walter Wriston, John Reed had not been forced out of the management of Wall Street, however it happened. There is no way that I can conceive of that we would have had the sovereign debt crisis, the credit card fiasco, the real estate fiasco, none of this. It's impossible. And I'm just being honest, right? So so this is, again, getting back to what happened in the last depression. The same people, it's the deja vu, as Yogi Berra said, deja vu all over again. And what is particularly tragic is that the Jews, once again, are going to be the #1 scapegoats. You better be #1, and they know it because I've had discussions with them about they are going to be the #1 scapegoats for all of this. Deja vu all over again. Deja vu all over again. Yes, they are. And so the idea that that anyone would expect me to have anything to do with the people, the Jews responsible for the governance of America, people, the leadership, the Jewish leadership in the federal government, like the Senate, I'm talking about, or at the Federal Reserve, I'm talking about, or on Wall Street, the management, first of all, I'm disabled and I can't work. But to me, it would be very, very sick. Given that the Jews know, because I've had discussions with many of them, very high place, Ivy League professors, yada, yada, yada. They know that all of this is headed to economic collapse, the worst in human history, and the scapegoating, like the last time, the #1 scapegoat, the Jews. As a matter of fact, I vividly recall when I was on the board of the Barnard College Club at Columbia University, because I'm an alum of that school, the Women's College at Columbia University. At the time, I had been active in alumni affairs. I was on the board of the Barnard College Club. I had given this speech at the annual dinner at the Barnard College Club, America at a Crossroads. I had been an advisor to the dean of the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University, which, by the way, is one of its strongest schools. I had been the first African-American alumni to be an advisor to a dean or the head of that school, or even before it was a school and was a division of Columbia University. More heads of state, more senior government officials, more heads of financial international organizations like heads and leaders of senior managers, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the UN, you name it. More of them, or more senior diplomats, have been graduates of Columbia University School of International Public Affairs than any other such school in the world. So that's where my second degree is from. My first graduate degree is from there. So in that capacity, it really was an honor, by the way, to serve Dean Lisa Anderson, because she was just an extraordinary person, extraordinary. So it really, I remember at that time, it was around the time after Kubrick's movie AI, and so the Barnard College Club was, we would do things like go to museums, theater, plays. It's a group of intellectuals like me, older alums. And so we would have discussions about art and culture, politics, everything. So I vividly recall a discussion about Stanley Kubrick's movie, or AI, Artificial Intelligence. Now, that movie, I don't think Kubrick finished that movie because it became wishy-washy. He was profound and extraordinary. And as we discussed at the Barnard College Club, Kubrick happens to be, like me, from the Bronx, and he's from the Bronx, New York. There are a lot of Sonia Sotomayor, Colin Powell. There's so many extraordinary people from the Bronx, New York. Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren. Honestly, I think they need to do a sociological study on the Bronx, because it's extraordinary how many such extraordinary talent came out of the Boogie Down Bronx. Whether it's the creation of hip hop, that was a Bronx creation, or a Colin Powell, a Sonia Sotomayor, a Ralph Lauren, a Kubrick. There's so many, Calvin. So I could go on and on and on. Black, Latino, Jew, white from the Bronx. And another place where there's been an extraordinary number of brain pool of African Americans has been the state of Georgia. No doubt, I mean, so many extraordinary geniuses in so many fields. That's another area that I would do a sociological study. Which African tribes were sent to Georgia? Because from anything from science, technology, medicine, law, civil rights, art, culture, literature, it's just extraordinary how many geniuses, African American geniuses, have been born in the state of Georgia, or who spent their formative years in the state of Georgia. From Martin Luther King to Malcolm X. So, I mean, I could go on. James Brown, so many, in a wide range of fields and disciplines. Part of that, I think, is because the whites in Georgia have historically given blacks, even though it's Deep Dixie, more opportunities than most other whites in other states. And anything they let an African American in that they give us a fair shot at, we excel like no one else. Now that's true. And Georgia has been one of those states where African Americans have, even though it's Southern and yada yada, the truth is the truth. And the proof of the pudding is demographics like the wealthiest blacks in America to this very day, and historically for the most part, have lived and born and made their money where? In the state of Georgia. To this very day, the zip codes with the wealthiest blacks in America, the state of Georgia is #1, and for the most part, even during slavery, freed blacks, they were it. But that's a digression. Getting back. So artificial intelligence, Stanley Kubrick, he was so profound. And it's the great tragedy is he died relatively young. Now, the movie is about obsolescence. But my take on Kubrick's film is he's talking about he's talking about a lot of things, not just obsolete machines, robots. What I think, one of the things, and we had this, a group of nerds, the Barnard College Club, I had a discussion with several members. Was Stanley Kubrick not just talking about machines becoming obsolete, but humans becoming obsolete too? Was he talking about genocide? Was he saying that, for example, humans are going to become obsolete and replaced increasingly by AI, artificially intelligent machines? Now, that is controversial. Let me backtrack and say, at this historic moment, they do not have computers with all these super duper high powered computing. They don't have computers that can outthink the smartest humans. I'm going to repeat that. At this historic moment, June 20th, 2015, they do not have computers that can outthink the smartest humans. They don't. But and when they get to that point, when they have artificial intelligence, machines that can, computers that can, we are in a lot of trouble, no doubt. But they don't. So, for example, and this is a game I excelled at. I learned at the Bronx High School of Science. There is a game. It is probably the oldest known board game on Earth. It is called Go, Geo. It's played on a board with stones, just white and black stones, all equal value. Now, this game, it's either created by the Chinese, I get it mixed up, and the Japanese are masters, or created by the Japanese and the Chinese are masters. It's an Oriental game. Now, Go draws, the rules are it's very simple. It can be played at all different levels. All the parts are equal. They're called stones, white and black, opposing teams, the white versus the black. But Go is a game that draws on your bigger picture, abstract, conceptual thinking. And it can be played at different levels. So, unlike chess, where they can have computers that can beat the best chess masters, they have never been able to develop computers with all the super duper high powered computing to defeat the best Go masters. They have never been able to do that because Go draws on your abstract conceptual thinking, your big picture thinking, and your ability to adjust and to adapt and think forward in ways that computers to this day, June the 20th, 2015, cannot. They just cannot. I say that again, going back. Okay, so that is, however, things are changing. And even that's controversial. Will they be able to? Some in science and technology say they'll never be able to do that, develop machines that will outthink humans. Others say they will. So that is something that's being debated, because humans are able to do something that they haven't been able to figure out how to make machines do, and that is adjust and adapt. They can't program that. They can't, it's hard to program something like that, to the same level that humans can. So it's controversial whether they will, I think they will, it's just a matter of time. And when they do, when they are able to create artificial intelligence that can outthink humans, we are all in a lot of trouble. We're all in a lot of trouble. Hawkins is right insofar as when that happens, we are in a lot of trouble. And we see that like in Kubrick's movies and stuff. We're in a lot of trouble. And metaphorically, as I discussed years ago on my show, we're in a lot of trouble for one basic reason. You can't program loyalty. Humans are best when we think with our heads metaphorically and when we feel with our hearts metaphorically. We are best. Computers cannot, they think and feel with their heads, period. They are cold, calculating, and rational. So the idea that they can develop computers that are going to be loyal to humans, they're going to be contemptuous of humans, and they're cold, calculating, and rational, they think and feel metaphorically with their heads, that's the end of humanity. That's called deductive logic. We're finished when that happens. But in the meantime, it's debated whether that will happen, in the foreseeable future. I think it will. It's not that, to me, it's not inconceivable at all. But moving right along. So, there is a push now to robotics. Maybe 20 years ago, after the end, not 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I vividly recall an article in the New York Times newspaper, probably can be Googled, and the gist of the article was, or is, that in my lifetime, and I'm old, that whites will outnumber blacks in South Africa. I'm going to repeat that. In my lifetime, I'm 63, this is 2015, whites are going to outnumber blacks in South Africa. You say, that's extraordinary. Yes, all that struggle to end apartheid for majority rule, and yes, that is true. And why that's going to happen is because of things like civil strife, but number one, AIDS, diseases like AIDS. Those plagues, those scourges are decimating populations, not only in Africa, but globally. Diseases, civil strife, war, famines, floods, whatever. But the number one is disease. So you say, well, isn't that's extraordinary. What that means, though, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you would say something like, oh, well, and if you look at Kubrick's movie, you would say, oh, well, maybe Stanley Kubrick was saying that the powers that be are going to decimate populations because they have these robots. For example, when that happens in my lifetime, that whites outnumber blacks, that those people who control those mining interests in South Africa, they'll just have robots do that backbreaking work that they now have black South Africans doing, the diamond mines, the gold mines. So it will be done much more cost effectively and efficiently. I don't know. But anyway, Kubrick's film was very, very AI, very, very, it's a shame. I don't believe he finished it. He died around that time. I think someone else finished his last two films because they weren't really, true, in my opinion, Kubrick films. I think the ending, the films would have, they were edited. He would have done a different job editing. He would have told a different story, a much more hard-hitting story. Put it this way. The two prevailing extremes views of human nature in Hollywood are Spielberg's view, the feel-good, people are good view, and then Kubrick's view of human nature, that people are selfish, greedy, envious, cruel, self-absorbed, and ruthless. I hate to say it, Kubrick is right. We are animals. As someone who wanted to be a psychiatrist, Kubrick was right, but you can't teach a child like that. You also can't you can't also raise a child to believe that everybody is good. But you have to create an environment where a child figures things out for him or herself. They have to be able to figure it out, but you can't make them cynical and bombard them with Kubrick's view. But I think, as someone who wanted to be a psychiatrist, you're awfully naive if you believe Spielberg's view of human nature. It is counterfactual. So moving right along, so I think Kubrick's thing was AI was the message was that humans are increasingly becoming obsolete. We are going to be increasingly replaced by intelligent machines, and that is a threat to our species, which it is. And that he was, he was like, genocide and all of these things are going to happen, and they have been happening at increasing and alarming rates, and we face a really the worst depression in the annals of human history that will allow the powers to be to consolidate their wealth and power. And given that robotics are increasingly something that it's something that is feasible, we are all in a lot of trouble. We're all in a lot of trouble because when this economic collapse occurs, the scapegoating is going to be horrific. Put it this way, economics is the study of scarce resources. It is truly taught zero-sum wherever it's taught on earth. I dropped out of a PhD program in economics, a top 10, top 5 by some schools. So to become a senior manager in the Giuliani administration, I left academia. I was teaching at the City University, deputy chair, and working on a PhD for BMCC, and then I left. But economics is the study of scarce resources, absolutely. So it's zero-sum. So if the United States government is going to spend money on ISIL, the barbarians destroying the world, obviously they don't have money for healthcare, housing, food, education, jobs, infrastructure in America. Economics is the study of scarce resources. So when this economic collapse hits, it's going to be horrific, right? Yes. And what do you think the United States government is going to do? Well, let me put it this way. The United States government has built over 800 detention centers. They really are concentration camps, let me be frank. And 200 of them were built by the last sitting vice president's firm, Halliburton, a subsidiary, Kellogg, Brown and Root. So they have these things all, and they're in all 50 states. And what's really scary is the job description to work at these places. They essentially are like, really white, like a Bill and Hillary Clinton with a high school education. Let me be frank, or not even at a GED. So you get my drift? So they got 800 of them. They're operational, and it doesn't bode well. Economics is the study of scarce resources. When the bottom falls out, there's going to be chaos all over, especially in America. And as a person of color, I can be honest. I know that white Americans want to take back their cities, well, whether it's from the people who live in those mansions on Beverly Hills or Hollywood Hills, or who live live in those fancy co-ops in New York City or in Chicago. Or they want to take back Baltimore, their port cities, they're beautiful. They want to take all that back. So let me be frank. So it's going to be terrible, horrific, horrible, worse than the last time. Economics is the study of scarce resources. And this is something that the United States has been preparing for via the Patriot Act, setting up Homeland Security. But this is something that the United States government has been preparing for some time, right? Because after World War II, think about it. What was it? What was the legislation then? It wasn't the Patriot Act. It wasn't setting up Homeland Security. It was known as the McCarran Act. The McCarran Act, remember? In response to communism, the Red Scare, quote unquote, the United States government funded the development of detention centers, concentration camp. On the McCarran Act, you can Google that online. And you know what? They had plans and everything like they have now with Homeland Security to rope off certain sections, how to shut down a community and round up everybody and send them to these detention centers, quote unquote, under the McCarran Act. So I guess those concentration camps, detention centers became old and obsolete. So then they have now the Homeland Security, the Patriot Act, and there are 800 concentration camps. They call them, is operational in the United States of America. 2 of them constructed and designed, and the contract awarded to the last sitting vice president, Dick Cheney's, the firm he headed, Halliburton subsidiary, KBR, Kellogg, Brown and Root. Economics is the study of scarce resources. We are entering a horrific, horrible phase in human history, and I just want to put it out there that it is really, to me, sick for a Jew to expect me to have anything to do with anything that dirty, given they know they're going to be the #1 scapegoats, absolutely. Even though they don't own Wall Street, they just managed it and ran the global economy into the ground. They don't own it, they just manage it. Not why I say this is because when I was on the board of the Barnard College Club, New York, one of the members, Norma's son-in-law, Chertoff, was appointed by then President Bush to be in his cabinet as head of Homeland Security. Chertoff is a Harvard Law graduate. Norma was that's his son-in-law. And the board was about 7 to 10 people. Now, they asked me to work for Chertoff, because I said I wanted a job. They asked me to work for Chertoff Homeland Security. Now, I was so upset by that I resigned from the board of the Barnard College Club and stopped being active at Columbia University as an alum, period. Because we had discussions ad nauseum, me and the other board members, etc., of the Barnard College Club, that we are entering this horrific phase in human history, that there's going to be scapegoating for what Wall Street has done. Blacks and Jews are the likely most targeted groups. And yet they wanted me to work on Homeland Security, that is, to be involved in the architecture of the looming inevitable pogrom. And I was so disgusted that I left, because you know what? We had so many discussions that's what the Patriot Act was, an updated McCarran Act, and that's where the nexus of all of this horrific stuff that's going to happen, and it's going to happen sooner than people think is going to happen. Now, I say that's a long way in to what I have to talk about the personal today. Yesterday, I went to Panama Casa, the people who I'm renting this apartment through, and the owner was standing outside. And I said to him that I was thoroughly disgusted leaving Panama because I need to go and get my health checked out, because I have been repeatedly sexually assaulted in my apartment, my property vandalized and stolen. And I said, if finally Panama Casa sends a cop, he doesn't take a report. I let him know that I showed the cop, and I have some of the stuff. I showed the cap, which is true. Now, I showed the cap, things like this, my resume. I'm just going to scan it very quick. My resume, I'm just going to scan it over to you. This is not everything, this is just a small, my resume is a small smattering of the things that I've done. My resume, right, and I said, you know, I asked him to take the stuff and check it out, investigate. He wouldn't take it. I showed him this letter, right? Like I told you, I was the first African-American alum in the history of Columbia University to have served as a member of the advisor to the dean, to serve as the advisor to the dean of School of International. So I did things like this. I met with these people, right? You know, a very rare for the conflicts resolution program. You know, these are great people too. Great. It's really tragic what's going on. It's painful for me. I'm very, very ashamed to be an American. Let me be honest. That's one of the reasons I decided to take a vacation out of the country. And it has been painful for me to see the Americanization of Europe and Latin America. It has been really painful. The word is painful, what my country has done. So that I did when I was an advisor. This I did when I was on the board of the Barnard College Club. The annual meeting, right? I gave a speech. This goes to my friends. This is a letter with Robert Johnson, the Bronx DA, warning about my sister. He did nothing. I also saw his staff to warn about my brother. I was told to get an order of protection. My mom died before I could do it. I was just so overwhelmed. This is what I got from Giuliani, an award out of the hundreds of thousands of city employees, an award for being a positive role model as an employee of the city of New York, as well as in the gay and lesbian community. I was no more than the second African American to get that award. I had proof of my income, my Social Security, which is close to the maximum. My health insurance is Medicare. You see, medical insurance, I pay for Medicare. And it's a disability. I am legally disabled. But it's standard, benefit. It's close to the maximum because I had the good fortune to have a good education and therefore an excellent work history. I showed him this, that my NYSERS pension from my employment for 9.5 years as an assistant commissioner, senior government official in New York City, my last job, is a lifetime payable. It is payable for life. Like Social Security, it goes up with a cost of living adjustment. It does not go down. I showed him my IRA 401k benefit, which is variable, related to my employment at the City University of New York through TIAA-CREF, which is a financial institution that in part invests money for professors, academics. I showed him my credit report. I had all of this for him, a whole package, my credit report. Outstanding. Let me get the rest. Outstanding. Credit report, outstanding. Outstanding. As reflected in my credit score, 733. Experience. That's an excellent credit score. That's excellent. And that is even though when I got sick and lost everything and became disabled, I had to file for bankruptcy. Yes, I did. which I did. Which is what my brother should have done instead of what the Bronx DA's office said he was trying to do, appropriate my mother's wealth and assets. And then I was told by an advocacy group, mine too, which now basically is my fine art collection and my little pensions. But he should have filed, which is what I did. I didn't ask my mother, didn't expect my mother I helped my mother. I didn't try to undermine her. That's what he should have done. So I was at Cobble Hill, upmarket Cobble Hill Towers. It's very hard for black people to get into that community. Racism, segregation in New York. And you notice the things they say about me. Excellent tenant, no problem, respectful, courteous, paid on time and in full. And you know how hard it is for black people to get in that community. And this is one by Panama Casa. Excellent, high moral standards, yada, 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 dated June this year. This month, as a matter of fact. Then I had proof of my income from my inheritance from my mom's estate. My brother, Oscar, was the executor. I asked the Bronx County courts to take him off as executor. They refused to do it. I don't know. And they have refused to give me the final details, my brother and his lawyer, for the settlement of my mother's estate. And that is something that is just horrific, horrible. So I had all of this, you see? This is the first thing. And then I was required, money was put in escrow. That was really, really horrible. In escrow, until I left my mother's house, which I had gone to care for her, broom clean, vacant, which I did. My brother and sister said they didn't want anything. I threw most of the stuff out because I was leaving the country. You see this? Initialed by, these are by my brother's lawyer. It was notarized at the closing for the house, my mom's house. And I went to the closing, but my brother and his attorney did not let me sit in on the conference. I had to sit outside and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. That was not nice, because I am a 1/3, like my sister, my brother, and I, 1/3 beneficiaries, distributees of my mom's, small estate. She was 90 years old. And then I had, before I left Ireland, I had a credit report done in Ireland. See, this is what my brother's lawyer, and they still have not given me the final documentation for the settlement of my mother's estate. Now, shortly before my mother died, my mother and I went to see an attorney because my mother said she had $90,000 in Immigrant Bank, and Immigrant Bank said she didn't. But my mom, a lot of things we couldn't follow up on, getting an order of protection against my brother, me. I would go and I'd ask, like the DA's office, well, you're saying my brother's trying to appropriate my mother's assets. When is he going to be arrested? These things take time, too much time. My mom died. And then when she died, a government advocacy group told me, it's good you're taking a vacation out of the country because your brother's trying to get your assets next. And so this is the Irish Credit Bureau. You see, I had no debt in Ireland. See, no data for the Irish. And what else did I show him? So, I had all of this to show that man yesterday. Now, when he came, he didn't speak English. He only spoke Spanish. So Panama Casa sent 2 people as interpreters, Aldo and Maritza. Now, like the Chinese in America, the people, Koreans who own those stores, when they don't want to talk to you, they act like they don't understand English. When they want to talk to you, they speak fluent English. Now, Aldo, I know he can write and speak the King's English. So he was the interpreter. I said, Aldo, tell me what you told the cop who came, because you were the translator, you and Maritza. So he sends this. Now, Aldo, I know he can speak and write the King's English. So right away, I'm stressed because I'm aggravated. The cop came and he didn't take a report. They tell me in Panama, cops don't take reports. You got to go to the police station. So I said, even if you find someone murdered in your house, you can't call the cop to take a report. No, you got to go to the police station. I guess I look stupid, right? The cop didn't take a report because he said he didn't find forced entry. Can you believe it? I had overwhelming and irrefutable evidence, like my stained gowns, like video from my computer of the broken chair, the stain in the shower stall, the day that the chair broke when I sat on it, like lint. Like, this is lint. This is what I showed the cop. Not dust, lint. You see, there is virtually no dust in my living room at all. No dust. No dust. Lint. This lint was in my bed, right? This lint was under my blanket, under my top sheet, under my foot on my bed. It freaked me out. You wake up and you see lint on your bottom sheet under your feet. So if the stains on the gowns freaked me out. Sitting on a chair and it breaking, seeing this, and I told the cop this, I showed him the gowns. The gowns were clean except for the stains, inside, front and back, because I don't have no urine, no poop, nothing on the gown. So Aldo, I know, speaks the King's English, and he writes the King. They all do. They all do. It's like in America, the people on those greengrocers and those, they don't, although they can't speak English, they speak the King's English. So this is what he sends, and I know he knows he speaks English. So he says, for example, you see, he says, Miss Beverly showed us personal of her life and document. We translate all information she gave to him. Okay. She also showed us a instead of gown with couple stain. What is that? With couple stain? With couple stain? No couple stain. The gown had stains, a few stains. What is this couple stains? The same stain in pictures in the bathroom. Same stain in pictures in the bathroom. Also, couples dust inside a plastic bag. This is what I showed. Lint inside a basket bag. Lint. Specks of lint. Several specks of lint, So right away, we that means Panama Casa. What is a couple stain? We explained to Sergeant Ricardo that Miss Beverly was very upset about this, knowing that she is a very good, clean lady who sleep clean, and so she go sleep and wake up like that, scared about it. Now, I know Aldo's fluent in English, all right? So, a couple stain, what does that mean? No couple stain. There was and I have shown those gowns ad nauseum. Hold on, I'll get one.